The CEO runs a monthly or quarterly operating fitness review, revenue, margin, cash, pipeline, the operational KPIs. And the CHRO runs a completely separate people review, engagement scores, headcount, turnover rates, maybe a succession slide. There are two meetings, two scorecards, and two entirely different conversations about what the company needs. Hey there, senior leader, and welcome to the Talent Sherpa podcast. This is where senior leaders come to rethink how human capital really works. I'm your host, Jackson Lynch, and today we're going to be talking about the single structural fix that determines whether your CEO and CHRO actually operate as partners or just sit in the same room pretending to be. Here's the question I'm getting from CHROs all the time. How do I get my CEO to care about people outcomes? And look, I understand the frustration behind it. You're doing serious work. You are building capability. You're managing risk. You're developing leaders. And you feel like none of these things are registering until something breaks. But the question itself reveals the problem. If people outcomes live on a separate track from business outcomes, they're always going to be secondary. Always. And the CEO is not ignoring your work because they don't care. They are ignoring it because it's not connected to the numbers that they are accountable for. And that's not a relationship problem. It's not something even a relationship can solve. It's an architecture problem. The good news is architecture is what we fix. But before we get started, let me ask you for a very quick favor. If you find value in these conversations, and I sure hope you do, please like, subscribe, or follow the Talent Sherpa podcast. It is free, and it is the most impactful thing you can do to make sure that more senior leaders find the show. And it also allows us to keep doing this work for the larger HR community. And if you're a CHRO looking for a weekly edge, check out the CHRO Chronicles. That's a paid newsletter built exclusively for sitting CHROs, 15-minute reads once a week on CEO alignment, board mastery, executive talent decisions, metrics that CEOs actually value. They're subscriber-only insights that you will not find anywhere else. $30 a month. Head on over to mytalentsherpa.com to subscribe. All right, let's get into it. Now, here's what I see playing out inside of most organizations right now. The CEO runs a monthly or quarterly operating fitness review, revenue, margin, cash, pipeline, the operational KPIs. And the CHRO runs a completely separate people review. Engagement scores, headcount, turnover rates, maybe a succession slide. There are two meetings, two scorecards, and two entirely different conversations about what the company needs. And here's what happens downstream. The CEO makes capital allocation decisions without people data in the room. A new market entry gets funded, but nobody pressure tests whether that talent exists to actually execute it. Or a cost reduction lands, but the retention impact on the top 10% is never even talked about, let alone modeled. And the CHRO finds out after the fact they scramble to respond to decisions that they had no hand in shaping. Meanwhile, the CFO is in every single business review with direct line of sight to financial performance. Talent sits outside that room. So when the board asks whether the company can execute its strategy, the answer comes from financial models, not capability ones. And the CHRO then becomes a narrator of what happened rather than an architect of what comes next. So this is not a talent problem per se. It's a measurement architecture problem. When people outcomes and business outcomes run on separate tracks, the business track is going to win every time. And not because people don't matter, but because the system is not wired to show the connection. So here's the trap that most leaders fall into. The CHRO tries to earn a proverbial seat at the table, participation trophy in corporate form, by adding more people metrics. They love data. They add dashboards. They track engagement and spans and diversity and training hours. And look, every single one of those things lives in its own world, disconnected from revenue, margin, or cash. It sounds smart, but it's quietly creating a second economy inside the organization. That people economy runs parallel to the business economy. The CEO nods politely at the engagement scores, and then they pivot to the numbers that actually drive the P&L. And the CHRO leaves the meeting feeling unheard. And the CEO leaves the room feeling like HR is still not speaking the language of the business, and the cycle continues. Now, the second trap is treating alignment as a relationship problem. CHROs invest an enormous amount of energy in building trust with the CEO, and that's important. Regular one-on-ones, strategic conversations, demonstrating credibility over months. Like I said, all of that matters. But trust without a shared measurement is just proximity. You can have a great relationship with your CEO and still operate on completely different scorecard. The relationship makes the conversation possible, but the scorecard makes it productive. The real constraint, I think, is this. Until people outcomes are expressed as predictors of the final outcomes, they're going to be treated as separate from the business. Separate, by the way, means optional. And optional, by the way, means secondary. So the shift is pretty simple to describe and hard to execute. Stop treating human capital as a cost line and start treating it as capital, like real capital, with return expectations, allocation discipline, and stop rules. So think about how the CFO manages a capital expenditure. There's a business case, there's a return window, there is stage funding usually, there are review gates, and if the investment isn't performing, there's normally a stop rule where you say, okay, we've tried enough of this, we're going to do something different. Nobody would fund a plant expansion without that discipline. But companies fund people plans, leadership development programs, organizational redesigns all the time with almost none of it. So when you treat human capital as capital, the CHRO stops reporting to the CEO from a separate scorecard. They share one. The people metrics that matter are the ones that predict where the P&L is going. Revenue per employee, speed to impact, retention of the top 10%, role clarity at scale, talent density and pivotal roles. We talk about these all the time. They are not HR metrics. These are business metrics that happen to run through people. Now, the operating model shifts when you have two separate reviews, and then you move it into having one integrated review, the CEO, the CFO, and the CHRO. Same room, same numbers, same cadence. What got better? What slipped? What do we fund? What do we stop? 3 voices, 1 score. So how do you do it? Well, play one. You got to build a shared scorecard with 5 or fewer people metrics that predict financial outcomes. Most CHROs, candidly, they track way too many things. You got to be simple. Pick the metrics your CFO would put in a board deck because they correlate to the business strategy, revenue, margin, execution speed. We've talked about which ones those are. If it does not connect to a financial outcome within 2 follow-up questions, you should drop it. Now, what leaders typically do is build a people dashboard in isolation. And then they go and they light a candle and they hope the CEO finds it compelling. That's not the best strategy. What you should do instead is co-build the scorecard with the CFO. When the CFO selects the metrics, or at least as a co-creator of them, they own the numbers right next to you. And that changes the dynamic in every subsequent review. Now, play number 2. You can apply capital allocation rules to every major talent investment. Yeah, if you want to build an engineering hub, for example, in a new city, you got to write the business case the same way that you would a Capex request. State the outcome, the cost, time to first ship product, the expected ramp, the risk plan, the funding stages. Then you set up the monthly review with the CFO and you design a stop rule. If the signals miss 2 consecutive reviews, then you're going to pause and you're going to reassess. When talent investments live under that same level of discipline as other capital investments, people are going to stop hearing soft talk and start seeing enterprise value. Play number 3 is to establish a monthly operating rhythm with the CFO. Not a quarterly talent review, not a meeting where you say, how's my team supporting you? I'm talking about a monthly business review that includes people data as a standing agenda item. You got to keep it tight. What moved, what did not, what needs funding, what needs to stop. The CHRO bringing the people data to the business that's tied directly to business metrics. The CFO is bringing financial context. The CEO is arbitrating the trade-offs. This rhythm does 2 things. It forces connection between people outcomes and business outcomes into a regular cadence. And it makes the CHRO a business partner structurally, not just relationally. And then play 4, you got to make the talent bets visible to the board the same way you do other capital bets. If the board sees a $100 million plan investment, they should be seeing a $2 million leadership build the exact same way. return thesis, milestones, review gates. And when you present it to the board in the language of capital allocation, you elevate the entire conversation. And the board stops asking about engagement scores. I've lived this. It happens. They start asking about executional capacity. And now you've elevated, you're at the altitude that you need to have an impact on the business. But I know asking your CFO to co-build a talent scorecard with you is probably about as inviting as volunteering for an unnecessary root canal. But I promise you, the first time a CFO defends a people investment in a board meeting because they helped to build the case, you're going to wonder why you waited so long. So here are my 4 main takeaways. Number 1, alignment between the CEO and the CHRO becomes real only when there is a scorecard, one scorecard, not 2. People outcomes must predict financial outcomes or they will always be secondary. Number 2, treat human capital as regular capital. That means business cases, return windows, stage funding, stop rules for every major investment. Number 3, build a shared scorecard with the CFO, not for the CFO. Co-ownership changes the dynamic from reporting to partnering. And number 4, establish a monthly operating rhythm where the people data and financial data are sitting side by side. 3 voices, 1 score. What got better? What slipped? What do we fund? What do we stop? And if there's one thing I want you to carry out of this episode, it's this. When people outcomes and business outcomes run on the same scoreboard, alignment's not something you negotiate. It's something the system produces. So I want to say thank you for spending some time with me today. And I really do appreciate you being a part of this community of senior leaders who want to rethink how human capital really works. A shout out this week to Alicia from New Jersey, and thank you for listening. Whether you're tuning in from Boise, Idaho, or Melbourne, Australia, this community keeps growing, and that is because of you. Now, if you're thinking about how to apply this in your own situation, let me point you to a couple of resources. If role clarity is where you want to start, and candidly, it should be, check out getpropulsion.ai. They have AI teammates that enable your leadership to focus on the work that actually drives business outcomes. And if you're a first-time CHRO, you're preparing to step into that role, I'd love to work with you. We build practical tools to help you make an impact from day one. You can find everything over at mytalentsherpa.com. And if you want to read the best-selling Substack, I think I've gotten some pretty good stuff on there recently. You can find that at talentsherpa.substack.com. So until next time, keep raising the bar, keep demanding one scorecard, and keep on climbing.